You're tuned to Radio Kidnappers, the voice of Hawke's Bay. This is a program called
The Wonderful World of Wardini Books.
And as always, got the wonderful Lou from Wardini Books in Havelock North. How you been going?
Very well, yeah.
As we speak, it's almost like a summer's day out there.
It is. I haven't warmed up yet, though. My house is quite chilly unless I put the heating on.
Oh, really?
So I have to come outside to warm up.
I always find it is warmer outside than what it is in my place, because my wife's a bit mean too. She doesn't like putting the heating on.
I just don't think to sometimes. And I complain about being cold and go, but I could just press this button.
That's right. All right, and as always, we have some fabulous books to talk about today. Our first one is going to be called Leilong, the Library Bus.
Look at that.
My grandson loved that.
There we go. So that's by Julia Liu and Bailin, and it's published by Gecko Press. And Leilong is a brontosaurus. You may have noticed that, Ken. And she is going out for a bit of a potter around the city with her friends Maggie and Mo and Max. And they're going to go to the library. Oh, Leilong's a him, sorry. And Leilong's quite excited about this because loves a story. So they're rampaging through the city, and they stop for refuelling because brontosauruses need a lot of fuel, and it's grass cakes today at the dinosaur refueling station. And then Maggie says, "Go fast, we can't be late," and off they go. They get pulled over by the coppers because Leilongs are going too fast. So they get a bit of a speeding warning there. We're excited about getting to the library is their excuse. So off they go, and when they get to the library, Leilong's a little bit too big to get in. So there's a bit of a hoo-ha about Leilong getting in, and they're saying, "You're actually a bit too big and a bit destructive, you know." And we don't mean to be, and all that kind of thing. So Leilong has to wait outside, and Leilong is dreaming of all the stories that could happen with dinosaurs. So if you look at these sort of imaginary things, what do dinosaurs eat? And there's Leilong imagining dinosaurs eating pizza and ice cream, which I'm sure is probably not the best diet for a dinosaur. And he's listening to the children being read the story of Little Red Riding Hood. So there's a little picture of a dinosaur there in a cape with a little basket. And love story there between two dinosaurs, and all the things that Leilong is imagining might be housed in the library. And something happens when the librarian's reading. "What big teeth you have, Grandma," she reads. The children shout, "All the better to eat you with." And Leilong is so into the story because he's listening from outside. He goes, "No, don't hurt her." And it roars, and there's like an earthquake going through the building, and then they get biffed out. But what happens is all the children follow Leilong out of the library because they feel sad that he's been banned from the library. So what they decide to do, this is my favourite bit really, the library's empty. He only wanted to hear the story, the librarian says, but a dinosaur's too big, says the manager. But they have a little think about it, and they think about inclusivity and the way everybody should have a story. Indeed. And so they decide that Leilong could be a library bus. And that's when the library bus bit comes in, because they pack a load of books onto Leilong, and then Leilong goes around and makes sure that all the children can get, and the children and the grown-ups can choose a book and have a book out. And then great spread of all these people. And Leilong's favourite bit is when the librarian reads just to him.
Tell you what I like about that book. It's a busy book. There's lots of things that people can look at. Look at that, look at that, look at that.
Yeah. So you're having the story, but the children don't look at the words, especially when they're little, because the words mean nothing to them just yet. So they're looking at the expression on the dinosaur's face and all the little bits that are going on. See, there are all the buildings there and all the little lives that are occurring in there. So there's stories absolutely everywhere throughout this book, aren't there?
I love it. That's why I like it.
It's great, isn't it?
And our next book is going to be called Spellbound Ponies, another kid's book.
Yeah, what do you think this is? Who's this pitched at, Ken?
Oh, I think that's pitched at young children. Young female children.
Yeah, you can say it, it's okay.
Yes, that's right.
Because I just think that there's sometimes a little mismatch between the marketing and how good the story actually is. So in this one, it's Spellbound Ponies, Magic and Mischief by Stacey Gregg, and she is a beloved New Zealand children's author. Generally does have horses in her books. They're not just horsey books for little girls, though. And that's why I have a bit of not a problem with the marketing, because it's a beautiful looking book, isn't it?
Well, it immediately says to me, what we just said.
But it's actually a ghost mystery.
Really?
Yeah, and you wouldn't get that. So you pick it up and you go, okay, horses, great, sparkles, wonderful. And this is about, it's set in the UK. Stacey publishes out of the UK, I think. And it's, what are their names? Ella and Olivia. sisters, and Olivia is really into horses, and they've just moved into the countryside, so they've moved to Pemberley Village. And Mum, Mrs. Campbell, has heard she wants to get the kids off the devices and out into the air in the countryside. There's been a divorce, it's vaguely mentioned later, so they've moved into the countryside. And Olivia is beside herself with excitement because outside, horses, obsessed with horses, never had the chance in the city. So Mrs. Campbell's seen that Pemberley Stables is there, and they go, and they couldn't get through on the phone and all that kind of thing, and they turn up, and it seems to be quite abandoned. And Olivia thinks she can hear the whinny of a horse, but nobody else can hear anything. Ella refuses to get out of the car. She just wants her phone back. Thank you very much.
Yes.
But Olivia is a very brave kid, and is almost heroic in her fearlessness. And she decides in the middle of the night that she did hear something down there, and she's going to escape from the house in the middle of the night and go down with her torch. And because when she was there earlier, there was a girl that appeared to speak to her. You know, it was all a bit odd, but this girl called what's her name now? Can't remember offhand. This girl turns up and speaks to her and tells her a few things about the stable. So she goes back in the night, and this girl turns up again. But this girl is a ghost from the past.
Spooky.
And there is a spell on the horses that are there. They're all spellbound. So there's Bess, the highway horse, who's a ghostly apparition that goes out robbing in the middle of the night. But I need to find out the girl's... Eliza is the girl from the past who's a ghost, and she died in a riding accident, and her mother then got the local witch to put a spell on all the horses to stop them riding, and so they're in this sort of limbo land, and she wants to get the spell broken so the horses can be real again.
Wow,
there's a lot going on in there. It's so exciting. It's so it's riveting. And it's told in such a light and beautiful way that you've got all these massive things going on. There's ghosts and there's dead people and there's... But it's not scary.
No.
It's just exciting because Olivia and Eliza have the chance. They are the two brave girls that can break this spell and get the horses real again.
So is that book appealing to girls, or is it across the gender spectrum? Is everyone going to like that book?
Yeah, I think you need to give people an opportunity, don't you?
Yes, you do.
Yeah, because if there'll be loads of boys out there that like horses and like ghost stories. So if they venture forward and pick it up, don't ever tell them you can't have that, it's a girl's book.
Exactly.
It's a bloody good story.
Yeah.
You can read that.
Because I remember as a young man growing up many years ago, in fact about 60 years ago, that I used to be just in love with the Hardy Boys books.
Yeah.
And I think possibly because they were called the Hardy Boys, that mainly boys would have picked it up and read it.
I read the Hardy Boys too.
Yeah, great.
And the Nancy Drew mysteries.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, and our last book we're going to look at is The Commercial Hotel.
Yeah,
is it a novel or is it a...
It's not. It kind of looks like a novel. It's by John Summers, and this is a New Zealand book as well. And published by Victoria University Press. And in this one, it's sort of a collection of essays, and some of them have been published like in the spin-off or different places. Yep. And he's talking, it's just, I love it when people have this real knack of just telling you about fairly ordinary things, about travelling from the Wairarapa into Wellington on the train and the observations you make, and they make it absolutely fascinating. And they'll take little turns and segues and tell you about other things in their lives. So he and his partner Elisa are living in the Wairarapa, and it's about finding place really and finding community, and he talks about that a little bit. But then he'll tell you about later on there's a guy that he comes across and he interviews who's like a reenactor of historical periods, and will just you might have heard of him actually. I'll try and find his name for you. Shapiro, I think it's somebody Shapiro, and he dresses up in like World War II gear and reenacts journeys throughout New Zealand. So he'll go on foot with a really scratchy old backpack, you know. And he actually got charged because somebody said, "Oh, can you look after my vintage ammunition and guns for me while I'm away?" And he just like put them on the top of his fridge, and someone tipped the police off, and they're like, "You can't do that." And so he got a bit shamed out and had up for that. So there are all these kind of like bizarre little stories that come up, and there are some family stories, and it's a lovely collection.
Is it a historical book? Because when I look at it, we'll talk about looking at covers. To me, it says to me, I'm coming out of the 50s or 60s.
I don't know. Cover design by Leon Mackey, and I think it's rather beautiful, isn't it? It's almost got that sort of Art Deco-y feel to it, even. But he's talking about Ealing at one point, and then an Elvis competition, grassroots Elvis,
Yeah.
where there are just all these people dressed up as Elvis doing the most amazing things. You know,
Yeah,
you get
I love it.
Elvis after Elvis after
Yeah.
Elvis, and it's quite amazing the way that he describes that. And then he talks about the local dump and all the treasures that you find at the local dump.
Good old days, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just one of these. It's one of these books that is a little treasure in itself.
Yes.
And you can read it cover to cover. Or you can just read one bit and then go back to it later.
Yeah, and each one's like a little story on its own.
Yeah, and he's a beautiful writer. He's got some really funny observations.
Yeah.
And then he's got some really poignant and descriptive observations of landscape as well. Yeah.
And if we want any of these fabulous books, where do we get them?
We get them at Wardini Books online. Ring us up, email us, do all of the things.
Good on you, Lou. My pleasure as always. Look after yourself. Talk to the same time, same place next week.
Cool. Cheers, Ken.